My name is Raphael. I'm 31 years old, and for 6 years of my life I lived a lie so elaborate, so convincing, that even today I wonder how I could have been so blind. This is the story of how a woman I loved used my compassion against me, isolated me from everyone I loved, and almost destroyed my entire life. And the worst part of all? She wasn't sick. She never was. If you've ever wondered how far someone can go to control another person, if you've ever doubted your own instincts in a relationship, or if you simply want to understand how emotional predators operate, this story will show you all of that. And I'm going to tell every detail because maybe, just maybe, this could save someone from going through what I went through. Before I begin, I want you to know that this isn't a story about revenge. It's about recognition. It's about understanding the signs I ignored, the red flags I painted green, and how I almost lost my sanity in the process. It was October 2016 when I met Isabella. I was 25 years old, working as a software engineer at a mid-sized company, and was at a point in life where I finally felt stable. I had a good relationship with my family, my parents Sandra and Roberto, my sister Camila, and my younger brother Diego. We would see each other at least twice a week. Sunday lunches were sacred. Isabella appeared in my life through a dating app. Her profile was perfect. Beautiful photos, charming smile, description that talked about love for books, indie films, and a passion for helping others. She worked as a clinical psychologist. When we arranged our first date, I was nervous in a way I hadn't felt in years. The first date was at a coffee shop downtown. Isabella arrived 5 minutes late, apologizing profusely, saying she had to calm down a patient who was going through a crisis. "Sorry, I couldn't leave her alone in that state," she said with teary eyes. At that moment I thought, what an incredible woman, she cares so much about others. During the following 2 hours, Isabella told me about her work, about how difficult it was to carry others' pain, about how she had always been very sensitive since childhood. She talked about how she had a complicated childhood, divorced parents, mother with depression, absent father. "I think that's why I became a psychologist," she said. "I want to help people not go through what I went through." I was completely enchanted. Here was a beautiful, intelligent, empathetic woman who dedicated her life to helping others. It seemed too good to be true, and as I discovered later, it was. The first 3 months were a fairy tale. Isabella was attentive, affectionate, always remembering small details about me. She cooked for me, left loving notes in my car, sent good morning and good night messages every day. Sexually, we had an intense connection. She said she had never felt so connected to someone, but what impressed me most was how she seemed to understand me. When I had a bad day at work, she knew exactly what to say. When I was stressed, she showed up with my favorite food. It was as if she could read my mind. What I didn't know at the time was that Isabella was studying me. Every reaction of mine, every word, every facial expression. She was cataloging everything, creating a detailed map of my personality to use against me later. The first red flag appeared in our 3rd month of dating. It was a Sunday, and as always, I had plans to have lunch at my parents' house. Isabella knew this, but that morning she woke up different. "Raphael," she said with a trembling voice, "I'm not feeling well." "What's wrong, love? Do you want me to cancel lunch and stay here with you?" No, go meet your family. I'll be fine alone." But she didn't look fine. She was pale, trembling, breathing irregularly. I couldn't leave her like that. I canceled lunch and stayed with her all day. She recovered miraculously a few hours later, thanking me profusely for staying. "You're so good to me," she said, hugging me tight. "I don't know what I would do without you." I felt like a hero. I had taken care of the woman I loved in a moment of need. What I didn't realize was that I had just passed her first test. In the following months, these episodes began to become more frequent, always at the most inconvenient moments, always when I had plans with my family or friends. Isabella developed what she called anxiety attacks. The symptoms were always the same: trembling, shortness of breath, uncontrollable crying. a feeling that something terrible was going to happen. And always, they happened when I was about to leave. "Raphael, I know you have plans, but I can't stop thinking that something will happen to me if you leave," she would say, holding my hand tightly. "I know it's irrational, but I can't control it." How could I question this? She was a psychologist, understood the human mind better than I did. If she said she was having anxiety attacks, who was I to doubt? Besides, the symptoms seemed real. She really trembled, really cried, really seemed to be in panic. My family began to notice my absence. My mother would call asking if everything was okay, why I was missing so many Sunday lunches. I always gave vague excuses: work, tiredness, other commitments. I didn't want to talk about Isabella's problems. I thought it would be a violation of her privacy. "Son, we miss you," my mother would say. "You can bring Isabella whenever you want. We'd love to get to know her better." Ah, yes, Isabella had met my family once, formal dinner at my parents' house. She was charming, polite, made everyone laugh with her stories. My parents were impressed. "What a wonderful girl," my mother said afterward. "You were lucky, Raphael." But Isabella never wanted to go back. She always had an excuse: work, tiredness, didn't want to bother. And when I suggested going alone, the attacks would appear. I began to feel guilty for wanting to see my family. Isabella wasn't doing this on purpose. She was sick. I needed to be understanding, patient. A good boyfriend would be present during difficult moments, right? The pattern was established. Isabella would get anxious whenever I had social plans that didn't include her. But when it was just the two of us, she was the happiest and most relaxed person in the world. We went out to dinner, traveled, had an active social life, as long as it was just us two or with her friends. Additionally, Isabella began telling me stories about my family that made me question if I really knew them. "You know, Raphael," she would say casually, "your mother made a strange comment about me the last time we met. She said I was interesting in a kind of, way." I didn't know. My mother had loved Isabella. But Isabella seemed genuinely hurt, so I began to doubt. Maybe my family had prejudices I didn't see. Maybe they didn't understand her sensitivity. That's how it worked. Isabella planted seeds of doubt so subtly that I didn't even notice. She never said directly that my family didn't like her. She just suggested, insinuated, let me come to my own conclusions. The first year passed. I barely saw. My family, my friends began to stop inviting me to events. Whenever I didn't show up, they assumed I was busy with Isabella. And I was, but not in the way they imagined. Isabella decided we needed to live together. "It would be easier for me," she said. "When I have crises, you would be close to help me." It made sense. I was practically living at her house anyway, always, running there when she needed me. We found a nice apartment far from my family, so we could have our privacy, according to Isabella. She insisted it was better not to tell anyone about her anxiety attacks. "It's embarrassing," she would say, "and people don't understand. They'll think I'm crazy," so I kept it secret. When my family asked why I didn't visit anymore, I made up excuses: work, tiredness, personal projects. They began to think I had changed, that the relationship had transformed me into a different person. And they were right. I had changed, but I didn't realize it at the time. Isabella began having more intense crises. They were no longer just anxiety attacks. Now she had depressive episodes that lasted for days. She would stay in bed, crying, saying she saw no meaning in life. During these moments, she needed constant attention. "Raphael, you're the only good thing in my life," she would say, holding my hand tightly. "If you leave me, I don't know what I'll do." She never explicitly said she would hurt herself, but the threat was always implicit. I was afraid to leave her alone, afraid she would do something drastic. So I would cancel everything: work, commitments, anything to stay with her. Work began to be affected. I arrived late, left early, was always distracted. My boss called me for a conversation. "Raphael, are you okay? Your performance has dropped a lot in recent months." I couldn't explain. How could I say my girlfriend was sick without seeming like I was making up excuses? So I just said I was going through a difficult personal time and that it would improve. Around this time, Isabella began questioning my loyalty more directly. "Do you still love me?" she would ask out of nowhere. "Sometimes I feel like you'd rather be somewhere else." "Of course I love you," I would respond. "Why are you thinking that?" "I don't know. You seem distant. Maybe it would be better if I found someone who really wants me." These conversations left me desperate. I didn't want to lose her, so I did everything to prove my love. Flowers, expensive dinners, constant declarations. I was constantly proving I was worthy of her, that she could trust me. The most perverse thing was that Isabella knew exactly when to ease the pressure. Just when I was at my limit, she would go back to being the charming woman I met. She would cook my favorite food, surprise me with gifts, give me the physical and emotional attention I was desperate to receive. "Sorry for being so difficult lately," she would say. "You know I love you more than anything, right? I just get scared of losing you," and I would melt. All the frustrations, all the doubts, all the questioning, everything would disappear. She loved me, she needed me, and I would be the strong man she deserved. This cycle, tension, crisis, reconciliation, became the rhythm of our life. I never knew when the next episode would come, so I walked on eggshells, trying not to trigger anything that could cause her stress. My family noticed my total absence. My sister Camila called me one day, crying. "Rafael, what's happening to you? It's been months since we've seen each other. Dad is worried, Mom cries, thinking she did something wrong." I felt terrible. But how could I explain? "Camila, I'm fine, I'm just busy with..." "With what? With whom? This Isabella? Rafael, you disappeared from our lives. This isn't normal." I hung up the phone, irritated. Why did everyone have to complicate things? Isabella was sick, she needed me. My family should understand this. When I told Isabella about the call, she became hurt. "Your sister blames me for your problems," she said, eyes full of tears. "Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm a burden in your life." "No, love. You're not a burden." Camila doesn't understand. Understand what? That I'm a crazy person who can't deal with life alone. Once again, I found myself consoling her, apologizing for something I hadn't even done, and promising that my family would never interfere in our relationship again. 2 years had passed. I was completely isolated. I hadn't seen my family in months, no longer had close friends, my career was stagnant. My entire life revolved around Isabella and her needs were infinite. Isabella now had crises almost daily. She could no longer work. "Too much stress," she said. So I supported the household alone, working overtime to compensate for my previous lack of focus. She developed new symptoms, mysterious headaches, digestive problems, insomnia. Always something that required my attention, my care, my constant presence. "Rafael, you're the only person who understands me," she would say. "All the doctors think it's psychological, but you know it's real, right?" Of course I knew. I saw her suffer every day, saw her cry in pain, saw her tremble with anxiety, saw her unable to get out of bed. How could someone fake all of this? I began having my own problems. Insomnia due to constant stress, headaches because of tension, anxiety attacks, ironic, considering I was taking care of someone with anxiety. But when I mentioned this to Isabella, she got irritated. "Are you trying to compete with me?" she asked. "Do you think your problems are worse than mine?" I quickly apologized. Of course I wasn't competing. My problems were smaller, simpler to solve. She was really sick. Isabella began monitoring everything I did. She wanted to know where I was every minute, who I talked to, what I ate. I know how to plan," she explained. "If you're going to be late, I need to mentally prepare to be alone." I thought it was care, concern. She loved me so much that she wanted to be connected to me all the time. My phone rang constantly. Text messages every few minutes when I was at work. "How are you? When are you coming back? I'm feeling like something bad is going to happen." I would respond immediately. I couldn't leave her anxious. One day my boss called me again. "Raphael, I need to talk to you about your performance and about your cell phone use during work hours." I explained it was a family emergency, that I was taking care of someone sick. He was understanding, but made it clear I needed to find a balance. When I got home and told Isabella, she had one of the worst crises I had ever seen. "Your boss is trying to separate you from me," she screamed between sobs. "He doesn't understand that I need you. Are you going to choose work over me?" I promised I would never abandon her, that I would find a way to better manage the situation. But inside, I was beginning to feel suffocated. At this time, something began to bother me. Isabella had crises when I left, but she never had them when she was alone with me. And when I returned from somewhere, from work, from the pharmacy, from anywhere, she was always perfectly fine until she saw me. Then the moment I arrived, anxiety would attack. I began testing unconsciously. Once I said I would arrive home at 6 p.m., but arrived at 5:30 p.m. She was in the living room, watching TV, eating popcorn, completely relaxed. The moment she saw me, her face changed. "Raphael, good thing you arrived." I was starting to get anxious. But she wasn't anxious. She was fine. She was watching a romantic comedy, laughing. I saw it. I began paying more attention, and I began noticing small but significant inconsistencies. Once Isabella said she was having such a strong anxiety attack that she couldn't breathe. I ran home from work. When I arrived, she was really gasping, trembling. But when I went to get water for her in the kitchen, I heard her on the phone. "Hi, Linda. No, I can't go out today. Raphael came home and, oh, he's coming back. I'll talk to you later." Linda was a friend of hers. If Isabella was having such a strong anxiety attack that she couldn't breathe, how did she manage to make a casual social call? When I asked about the call, she said it was from the clinic, a work emergency. But she hadn't worked in months, and I'd clearly heard the name Linda. I began to feel crazy. Was I imagining things? Was I being paranoid? Isabella constantly told me I was the most important person in her life, that she couldn't live without me. Why would she lie? But the inconsistencies began to accumulate, and underneath all the confusion, a small voice in my mind began to whisper, "What if she's faking?" I immediately pushed that thought away. What kind of person would fake being sick for years? What kind of person would use someone's compassion against them? No, I was being paranoid. The stress of taking care of her was affecting me, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to grow. It was in our 3rd year together that I truly began to investigate. Not consciously, but my mind had begun cataloging the inconsistencies, looking for patterns. Isabella now completely controlled my social life. I saw no one but her. My family had stopped calling. After so many rejections, they assumed I had chosen to distance myself. My friends had moved on. I was completely dependent on her for companionship, for validation, for purpose, and she knew it. "You know I love you more than anyone has ever loved you, right?" she would say. "Your family never understood you like I understand you. Your friends were superficial. I'm the only person who really cares about you." I believed it. Who else would dedicate so much time and energy to taking care of me? Who else would stay with me when I was stressed, anxious, overwhelmed? But then something happened that changed everything. I was working late one night when I received a message from Isabella. "I'm having a terrible attack. I need you now. Please come home." I immediately grabbed my things and ran home. But when I arrived at our building, I saw Isabella coming out of the elevator with a man I didn't know. They were laughing, talking animatedly. She was dressed to go out. Makeup, nice clothes, high heels. I hid behind a column and watched them. They went to the parking lot, got in his car, and left together. I stood there for 15 minutes, trying to process what I had seen. Isabella was having a terrible attack. She couldn't even get out of bed half an hour ago, according to the message, but I had just seen her leaving happily with another man. I went up to the apartment. It was empty. There were no signs of any anxiety, attack, There were no used tissues, no medications on the table, nothing that indicated she had gone through a crisis. I sat on the couch and looked at my phone. The message was still there. "I'm having a terrible attack. I need you now." For the first time in 3 years, I allowed the truth to enter my mind. Isabella was lying. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed awake, rethinking every crisis, every attack, every moment when I had canceled my plans to run to her side. How many times had she gone out when I wasn't home? How many times had she faked being sick to keep me close? Isabella came home at 3 a.m. She entered the room silently, thinking I was sleeping. I pretended to be sleeping and watched her. She went to the bathroom, removed her makeup, put on pajamas, and lay down in bed. The next morning, she woke up sick. "Raphael, I spent the whole night having attacks," she said with a weak voice. "Didn't you hear? I tried to wake you up, but you were sleeping so deeply." She was lying directly to me, looking into my eyes and lying. "Where were you last night?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Here, of course, where else would I be? You know I don't go out when I'm like this." More lies. I said I needed to go out to buy medicine for her. Instead, I went to a cafe and sat there for 2 hours, trying to decide what to do. I could confront her, but she would deny it. I could pretend I didn't see anything, but how could I live with someone I knew was manipulating me? I could end the relationship, but what if I was wrong? What if she really was sick and I was being paranoid? Decided to investigate more. In the following days, I began paying real attention to Isabella's patterns. When she had crises, when she was well, what type of behavior triggered each state? What I discovered made me sick. Isabella always got anxious when I had plans that didn't include her. I talked to other people, family, friends, colleagues, showed any kind of independence. I questioned anything she did. I seemed to be happy or relaxed without her. Isabella never got anxious when we were alone together. I was giving her full attention. I was doing something she wanted. I was stressed or upset. She became strong to support me. The pattern was perfect. Too perfect to be a real illness. I began doing small experiments. I would casually mention that I was thinking of calling my mother. Isabella would immediately begin showing signs of anxiety. I would cancel the plan and she would recover quickly. I would talk about a work project that was exciting me. She would develop a mysterious headache that required my attention. I would suggest we go out with some of my colleagues. She would have a feeling that something bad would happen if we went out. Everything was calculated. Everything was manipulation. But what shocked me most was realizing that she not only faked being sick, she was actively making me sick. She isolated me, stressed me, made me question my own sanity. She was systematically destroying me, and the question that wouldn't leave my mind was why? Why would someone do this to a person they loved? The answer, when I finally reached it, was terrible. Isabella didn't love me. She owned me. The final discovery came by chance. I was looking for a phone charger on Isabella's desk when I found a notebook hidden in the drawer. Morbid curiosity made me open it. What I saw changed my life forever. It was a diary, but not a normal diary. It was a detailed record of psychological manipulation, page after page, documenting her strategies to control me. Day 47, Raphael mentioned, he misses his family. Implemented strategy 3, severe panic attack. Result, plans canceled, full attention received. Effectiveness, 100%. Day 89, Raphael began questioning frequency of attacks. Implemented strategy 7, depressive episode with suicidal insinuations. Result, extreme guilt, renewed commitment. Effectiveness, 95%. Day 156, Raphael showed signs of excessive independence. Implemented strategy 12, fake physical illness to generate compassion. Result, intensive care, complete social isolation. Effectiveness, 100%, page after page, year after year. Every crisis cataloged, every manipulation documented, every victory over my autonomy celebrated. But the worst was yet to come. In the most recent pages, I found photos. Photos of me sleeping, of me working, of me in intimate moments. And notes. Beside them, evidence of emotional dependence, signs of successful isolation, self-esteem breakdown, satisfactory progression. She was studying me like a laboratory rat. But the part that completely destroyed me was in the last entry. Day 247. Raphael experiment approaches desired conclusion. Social isolation, 98% complete. Emotional dependence, 100%. Self-esteem, degraded to ideal level. Next phase. Implement total financial dependence through professional sabotage. Final objective. Complete possession of subject. Subject. She called me subject. 6 years of my life. 6 years believing I was taking care of someone I loved. 6 years being systematically destroyed by a person who saw our relationship as a scientific experiment. I photographed each page with my phone. My hands shook so much that some photos came out blurred, but I managed to document everything. Then I sat in the living room and waited for her to arrive. When Isabella came home, she found me sitting on the couch with the diary on my lap. "Hi, love," she said, with the smile I thought was genuine. "How was your day?" "Interesting," I replied, lifting the diary. I found some fascinating reading. The mask fell instantly. Her face changed from loving to cold in a second. There was no more pretending, no more acting. "Ah," she said simply, "you found it." 6 years, Isabella, 6 years of my life. She sat in the armchair in front of me, completely calm. And they were 6 very well invested years, in my opinion. "Why?" My voice came out weaker than I wanted. "Why did you do this?" "Because I could," she replied, without emotion. "Because you let me. Because you were the type of person who would fall for this kind of thing. You told me you loved me. I said many things. You believed them all." At that moment, I saw who Isabella really was. There was no regret, no explanation, no humanity. She had destroyed me because she could, because she wanted to, because I allowed it. "I'm leaving," I said. "No, you're not," she replied with absolute certainty. "You have nowhere to go. You have no one. You have nothing but me." And for a terrible moment, I thought she was right. I hadn't spoken to my family in years. I had no friends. My career was ruined. My self-esteem was on the floor. But then I remembered. All of this was her doing. She had isolated me, manipulated me, destroyed me. But I was still alive. I could still choose. "You're wrong," I said, standing up. "I have myself. And that's more than enough." I grabbed some clothes, my documents, and left. I didn't look back. Epilogue and final reflection. It took 2 years of therapy for me to fully understand what had happened to me. I discovered that Isabella wasn't a psychologist. She had lied about that too. She was a person with antisocial personality disorder who had perfected the art of emotional manipulation. I wasn't her first victim, and I probably wasn't her last. Reconnecting with my family was the most difficult and most rewarding process of my life. My mother cried when I appeared at her door. "We never stopped waiting," she said. "We always knew you would come back." Today, at 31 years old, I have a life that is mine. I have healthy relationships, a career that fulfills me, and most importantly, I trust my own judgment. If you're listening to this story and recognize similar patterns in your life, please seek help. Emotional manipulation is a form of abuse, and you don't deserve to live like this. And if you're wondering if it's possible to fully recover from something like this, the answer is yes. But it's a long, difficult process that requires courage. To face painful truths about yourself and about the person you loved. I lost 6 years of my life, but I gained something much more valuable. The ability to recognize my own worth, independent of what any person thinks or says about me. Isabella was wrong about one thing. I had much more than her. I had the capacity to genuinely love, to trust, to be vulnerable without being naive. These qualities aren't weaknesses. They're what make us human. And in the end, being human is much better than being a predator.